please limit your comments to 3 minutes so that others may have a chance to speak. Is there anyone here for public comment?
No one's raising their hand.
All right. Consent agenda. Warrants AP 2354, AP 2354R, AP 2354S, AP 2353, AP 2353S, AP 2355S, AP 2355, AP 2400V, AP 2401, AP 2401S, AP 2400INS, AP 2402S, PR 2400, PR 2326, PR 2327. Minutes February 1st and June 7th of 2023. Resignation from the Hadley Media Production Assistant, Abigail Morton. Intermunicipal agreement, City of Northampton and Town of Hadley, sealer of weight and measures. Intermunicipal agreement, City of Northampton and Town of Hadley, Veterans Services.
Could I just pull, asked to have pulled the two intermunicipal agreements? I just have a real quick question on both.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of those two items.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Molly, second by Jane. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Or I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Keegan,
Yes.
Chungalo,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Nevin Smith,
Yes.
Iser.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just the quick questions I have about the intermunicipal agreements. So for the sealer of weight and measures, the dollar amount, the 20,000 or so that's in there, I'm just curious how that compares to what we paid them for the last contract cycle, and who's reporting to us what, how, if they're getting all of the required inspections or whatever done. And then Veterans Services, fully familiar with that that service, but same question just about the dollar figure. Is that comparable to last year? Is it higher? And is this all covered in our budget right now?
Let's go to the Veteran Services first. And can you answer that, Steve?
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, sorry. Come on up.
Come on up.
Now you get comfortable, like sit back. Yeah, so the exact numbers I'm not in my head, but what I can say is that we budgeted numbers and it was an increase in every single community. But in May, we were reached out to from the town of Huntington, who then proceeded to join our district. So whatever we projected in your original budget, it has gone down because the numbers you got, it went down because we had a new town. And we didn't really need to increase the hours at that point because the other communities are right there. So our office hours are right.
Okay.
So yeah, so it did go up from year to year because our health insurance went up, but the original budget that we proposed back in the spring actually went down some because we now have a new community.
Perfect. Thank you.
Then I did see Dee Dee pop in. Dee Dee, do you have input on weights and measures?
Yes, so way back, Weights and Measures, they were billing us in August for the following year. And so what we decided to do is to change it, and we put money into the account so we could make sure they got paid. So right now the money in there actually they contracts each other. So it's just to make sure we always have money in the account. They did just do the inspections, but we had to pay the bill last August for the inspections that were just done this past spring. So now we do get extra, probably a couple $1,000 extra a year that gets added to that account. So that's why we made it its own separate account now.
Okay. Thanks, Judy.
You're welcome.
Make a motion to approve the 2 intermunicipal agreements as presented.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Molly, second by Jane. Roll call vote. Or sorry, is there any discussion? Roll call vote.
Roll call vote Keegan,
Yes.
Chunglo,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Nevin Smith. Yes. And Isaac.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Food truck regulations.
I have a question in the cover letter we got. If you can find that. It talks about,
Can Jane speak up? She's a little low.
maybe I'll put my microphone here. How's that?
That's
great.
perfect. Perfect.
All right. In the discussion of this in our agenda, it says Section 2 talks about licensing only on public property. Section 8.1 mentions licenses on private property. It seems to appear that the select board will license food trucks on public and private property. This is exactly what we want. If not, the regs are not adequate. So when you actually look at the regs, there is a section that's called Section 9, which says, you get there. Events licensed by the town of Hadley and food trucks hired for one-day private events on private property are exempt from these regulations and do not require a license, provided they comply with 527 CMR fire prevention regulation and 105 CMR 590. So I don't know if that is what we wanted to say or not.
No, can I explain that?
Thank you.
That was from planning. That was feedback from planning.
Section 9 is if somebody has a private party, like a wedding or a bridal shower or something like that, and they have a food truck giving out food at that private party, it is exempt from the licensing. However, if a entity, let's just say Aldi's wants to have a food truck in front of their property, like a hot dog, selling hot dogs for a couple of days a week, that would need to be licensed, and that is where the private property, and that is something that we still want to have the select board issue a license for.
And if Aldi's only wanted to have it for one day,
Even if they only want to have it for one day because they're actually selling food on their property.
okay, so it's a selling versus covered by your visiting.
Covered on typically, and if you're having a wedding, people are coming. I mean, the food truck is getting paid, but they're not getting paid by each person. They're not selling it to each individual. The person putting the party on will give them one lump check at the end of the day. So it's kind of a private. The public isn't invited.
Okay, thank you. That makes it clear.
So private parties, no. Open for business, people buying, yes.
So one of our concerns has been, what
that
if
correct?
someone
Is that-
wants to set up rent a driveway along Route 9, park a food truck there, and sell to the people who are stuck in traffic or the traffic workers? We'd like to have some oversight over something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're not sure if these regulations provide that oversight.
Yeah, that's what that comment means. It appears that it does between section 5 and section 8.1. I mean, section 2 and section 8.1, but it's not exactly clear that it's required for that to have licenses. And we just like to see it made more clear.
So the only thing I was going to say, because I thought when we had, I think Lisa Mead, I don't know that the select board should be involved in those because the select board itself doesn't have purview over the private property, right? Is what my understanding was from that.
Well, you issue a license to a food, to a restaurant, that is a private property.
Yeah, we do all the licenses in town.
I don't know why I was thinking that it wasn't for
So-
us.
There's a gap of, there's a understanding gap here that on the one hand, you do have the common vittler license. You do have the hawkers, peddlers, and tradespeople authority. You have an authority. And at town meeting, at Springtown meeting, we had a full bylaw to regulate food trucks. And at that time, I thought the ruling from Lisa Mead is that you as a select board had an inherent authority to take care of those things. And so we pulled the article to create a bylaw to regulate food trucks. And then more recently, someone from her office was here and said, no, you can only regulate on public property. So there's a gap here between what town council is, what they're saying and what we're looking for seem to not have meshed yet.
So Amy, if it would help, we did get that feedback from planning yesterday. I forwarded those questions to legal. I haven't heard from them back specifically because that vagueness was brought up at the last time.
Okay.
Are we, I mean, I don't feel like we're prepared because of this to vote tonight, so.
I would say not.
Are we holding anything up? Is there anybody
No.
in limbo right now
No.
while we're dealing with this?
The
No.
only place that's operating with the food truck right now is already operating.
And they're already out.
And that was intentional on y'all's behalf, y'all. While this is being decided,
Mhm.
that is still, they are operating fully licensed by the Board of Health and the fire
Okay.
department have done their inspections. So it's just your transient hawker.
Okay.
All right, so this will be on next
Alright.
agenda.
So let's table this.
And there's also the issue about a public hearing for every food truck permit.
So public hearing, it might not be the right word. We might want to readdress that because y'all do vote on every transient hawker peddler license, every one-day alcohol license.
Mhm.
And that's just sort of the way of doing business within the town of Hadley and in any other town, frankly.
Right.
If you want to hold an event in town, you go, you find out what the schedule is and you do it and you make your schedule adjust to their schedule.
Mhm.
And that's just how businesses operate. Y'all are the licensing authority in town with jurisdiction of this. So
Mhm.
first and third Wednesdays of the month, 48 hours in advance. It's pretty
Yeah,
reasonable. to
Usually on the
talk to
consent
that.
agenda.
I'm
right?
sorry,
Isn't it usually on the consent agenda unless it's something,
controversial.
yeah,
But
I also asked the attorney that question as well.
okay.
yeah,
So,
go ahead.
so we need to take out the public hearing because this is the public hearing.
Let's wait for the,
Okay.
let's wait for town council to give me a response. If I don't think it's clear, I'll also reply, CC planning and see if they understand it. If it's clear, if they have additional questions, I'll send it back to legal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Did
So
Jim
that,
have something to say? He was kind of wanted to say something there, Jim.
Well, I was just saying that the public hearing, the way it's worded, public hearing is a specific process. It's
Mhm.
legal notice in the newspaper, or because it says that the applicant shall pay for the cost of a public hearing. So I think what you intend and what the wording is, like, you're right, it's two different things. And that you don't want if you would, the legal public hearing for what you're doing, you just want a hearing to the public without all the notification and the cost. Because that's a huge burden on everybody and probably a very unnecessary one.
Okay. That sounds fair.
Thank you.
All right, moving on.
So it's tabled until the first week of August, correct?
Yes,
Just to let the planning board know, Jim and Bill, that it'll be tabled till the first
Yep.
week of August.
This food truck regulation actually came from the bylaw committee, and the planning board got involved when we found out that it wasn't permitted anywhere. So it's actually both boards are working on it.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
moving on to new business, 6.1, veterans banners. We do have Pam here as well as Steve,
Tom.
Veterans Service Officer. VSO. I was gonna say VSO, but I was like, oh, I need to say the acronym.
Oh, I got one here. Yeah, thank you.
Pull it back towards you, please.
So you can
Sorry.
hear us on the line. Okay.
All right, I know somebody distributed information over to everybody so you could see it. Just trying to honor our veterans and get the banners up. My thought was to put them up the same place where there's flags, that way, because that's where they are right now. I think those are the best spots. The program works where we get a sponsorship from a family, a veteran's family, the flags, and I've ordered one. I don't have it yet. It'll come in tomorrow, but I can have it for you. It's a sample. It's 24 inches by 48 inches. Gets strapped to the telephone poles. East Hampton has them. Westfield has them. Belchertown has them. West Springfield is working on a program as well. It is a military banner program that's across the country. They're trying to get it into all the cities across the country as best they can to honor all the veterans in the towns. We are looking to, the minimum order is 30. We're looking to get possibly, my goal is 75. We have a ton of veterans in this town. I talked to Legion, they put out 300 flags onto veterans' graves every year. And there's 60 members of the American Legion right now. 90% of them are veterans. And then there's other ones that I can't account for. But it's basically a sponsorship. A family will sponsor a banner. Price isn't set in stone. It's anything we want to charge, but it's 150, 160 for the other towns that are doing it. So that seems like a very fair price. The banner itself is $110. That's printed on both sides. And then we have to also pay for the brackets to put it up on the telephone poles. So 150, 160 would cover all of those costs. They go up from Memorial Day to Veterans Day and then they come down. The program works where if the families that sponsor them, if they want to take the banner after we take them down that first year, they are welcome to them. They paid for them. There are other options if they want to choose to leave it with the town so we can put it up again next year. There's a printed version of the banner or one of those little garden flags. They can get either one of those as well so that they will have a replica in their hands and then we can continue to keep putting them up every year.
Does it have to be a picture? I'm up here in the world. Does it have to be a picture, Kim?
No, it's Pam, but no, it does not have to be a picture. It's whatever the family, whoever's sponsoring it, they can put whatever they want. It does allow for a picture, the branch that they're in, the years they served, any medals or honors that they received. But we can very customize them very much to the person that is on the banner. And if you choose not to have a picture, you can just put more information.
And then I believe there were two. So the banners themselves, they're about 150. And then also I think there are ones that are actually free for families as well.
So yeah, the Gold Star, if somebody's a Gold Star from 1999 forward, if it's a Gold Star family, the program itself will pay for those free. Those are free. And then anybody who is recently enlisted, if they just enlisted, they will also be able to get a banner for free. So it covers everybody from just being enlisted now to all of our veterans. So I think it's a great program and a great honor.
So what I was thinking, and the board is welcome to chime in, I think this would be a great private project to give you the ability to kind of take charge, take the lead and own it. And then after, you would come back to the board and essentially just ask us for space,
So,
right?
yeah, so All what you said is right on board. I have it all written. It's in your notes.
Mhm.
The thing to remember is when a veteran isn't a veteran, isn't a veteran. In other words, you want to have a committee that would basically have a check and balance about what you're doing. No, the first thing you need to know is where you're putting them up.
Mhm.
And if it's the same poles and they're all owned by the town, then that's not a problem.
Mhm.
There are communities that put them up on the telephone pole, the power.
Mhm.
Well, you got to get permission for that. So wherever you're going to put them, you have to figure out how many poles there are going to be,
Mhm.
which will then tell you how many banners you can put up for a year. Or I say the same as what she was saying is you do it from Memorial Day till November, because then you can put them up another year and give them to them before they get worn out. You keep them up all year long, the
They're-
winter does
yeah.
damage to them. And so they're probably good for 2 years. If you take them down, you'd probably get 3 or 4 years out of them. But how many poles do you have? Who's going to go up first? All of those kind of decisions, you really want to have a committee with a chair to go over that and decide, because we do monuments and name recognition in all of our towns. I now have a new guy who's usually here on Wednesdays. He's great at research. So he researches, somebody says, oh, he's done 2 of our monuments.
Mhm.
We found out 3 of them are the same person. And a couple of them are not even the residents. And they didn't actually meet the criteria, but you really have to do research to find that out. So yeah, there's a ton of veterans in Hadley, but who gets on it? It's up to the families,
Mhm.
unless we can do some fundraising to lower the cost, is one idea. But whoever wants to do it, you have to kind of prioritize who goes up first, because if you have 100, but you only got 20 poles,
Mhm.
you have an issue. So
So I have a question. You said come November 12th, they come down, and let's say I have taken one for my family. Do you use that one again come
You have
Memorial
the
Day?
option of keeping it
Right.
yourself or leaving it with the town and let us put it up again. And then you would get the option again when we take them down the year after.
Okay,
It is yours. You've paid for it.
It makes me really nervous from my seat here to say you're going to give something to the town, because that just means we have to store it. And I'm not saying that we can't, but I think this is, personally, I like the idea. I think that we can put it as a second vote and do it in 2 weeks, but I think that we should approve so that they know they're going to have this possibility, and then you go out and do it, and it's all in your
Oh, you're
lap.
frozen.
somebody froze. The other thing I would say is, and you'll see it on one of your pages, we got the military tribute banners that are done by Hometown. They are approximately $150 right now with all the fixing. But the city of Hoyoke, if you look on another page, they did it back in 2018.
Mhm.
Now, theirs were cheaper before 4% inflation or 8%, whatever it was. But they also had a local printer do that. Okay, so there could be an investigation of, is there a local print service that would do the same thing? It couldn't say Hometown Heroes, but they could do all like Hoyoke, and they could put the town seal of Hadley at the top, and either a picture or all the information. So there's a lot of variables you can do with this. And if we go to one of the locals like down the road here and say, what would you charge us? It might be cheaper and it might be easier for families to do. But again, we have to figure out how many we can put up on a given year, which would also decide, do you want, if there's 10 polls and 20 people want it, then you're going to do 10, and next year you're going to do the other 10. Or
Scott, how many American flags do we put up?
I don't do it, it goes to the fire.
I tried to
Okay.
I tried to track him down last weekend and I couldn't. catch up
I
with him.
didn't know that you wanted to know that. We know it because we're
Okay.
the ones who buy the flags. So
Okay.
there is a number. I can give it to you
I
before your
just
next
think,
meeting.
I mean, I think that would be a number to start with.
And you look, if you look at the flags, because they're up now, if you come down Middle Street, it's like every other pole has a flag on it. So if we can mimic in between those flags with the banners, we would have some kind of an idea of how many we could put up. if we
That's
could
Middle
visually
Street
get
or
them.
West Street?
Middle Street right here, when I was coming down, every other pole has
Okay.
a flag on it. So
And
you
who
could-
owns those poles?
Verizon.
Yeah, utility.
Okay, so you have to ask permission of Verizon for the other poles.
There's definitely work to be done, but.
Yeah, but it's definitely, yeah, you can do it. You
Would,
just,
but would this be under the purview of the select board?
No, I think just saying, yes, we approve of it. I don't think we
I
want
mean-
anything to do with the management day-to-day of it.
well,
Yeah, I'm gonna,
that's not exactly true because who's gonna put them up and who's gonna
Exactly.
take them down?
Right.
it's gonna be,
That's
yeah.
gotta be done by the town, I would think,
Well, all right, so
unless
the,
you hire Verizon.
the town has to do that, but the town doesn't want to say, okay, Steve, we're putting up your flag. Sorry, Pam, you're not having yours up.
No, that's why.
That's why committee's so
That's the
important. You don't
committee,
want one
okay.
person making that decision. And if I can just overemphasize the resources that you can get from your veteran service organization, they're just like talking about the criteria. I think it is important. It doesn't have to be a large committee, but I
Yeah.
do think,
Well, I do know on the Hadley community page, when it was brought up, just as a conversation,
right,
there was at least 2 or 3 people that said they would gladly help, but nobody wanted to spearhead it, so that would be.
Automatic.
That's what you get, coming up for the idea.
But I do know, the hometown, they verify all the DD-12s, they verify everything, but I would
Yeah, we just have
refer
a
back to
local
you
guy
guys as
who
well.
can
so
really do
make
the,
sure that they're all legit.
yeah. Yeah, because
So-
I'm telling you, we've done monuments and.
And we might be able to enlist the American Legion, you know, to at least if we felt like we needed a place to store them or whatever. I'm sure that, you know, those guys are more than willing to participate with the
I bet-
towns because
I've actually already talked to them because I wanted to know how many flags we put on the graves, just to get an idea of
Yeah.
veterans. They are willing to
Yeah.
help in any way, shape, or form they can.
Yeah, we should
Okay.
have them at least be on the regular committee. And one of my staff, if not me, would also be on the committee.
So
that'd be
we,
great.
so if we did create a committee, then it would also be under open meeting
Yes.
law and all of
But
that.
we don't want to create the committee.
I think that's what Steve is suggesting.
Yeah, somebody's got to create the committee. I mean, it's.
you're talking about authorizing the committee. Is that correct, Jane?
I'm saying, why can't you just say, here I am, I've decided I want to do this for the town select board. Is it okay if we use the
Right,
flag?
and then we go on our way.
And they go on their way and then they have nothing to do with us. Just
I
like,
don't know
just,
why we don't want it to have anything to do with us.
well, do we want another committee? Is the question.
It's a unique purpose and it's a
And we
very,
will give
It's a
them a clear
limited
charge.
purpose
It would-
in a sense.
Yeah, and
I'd
it
be,
would-
I'd be on that committee.
There you go.
All right, Joyce.
Thank
oh,
you.
right, and because the fire department would have to be involved as
Yeah,
well.
it's
I
it's
think-
involving city streets and city, or I mean,
Yeah.
town streets and
Love my
town.
veterans.
And you may not need to have them on the committee, but you want to have them, like, I doubt Scott's going to want to sit on there because it's most likely, usually typically it's DPW who puts that stuff up there and fire.
Mhm.
But you might just be able to use them as a resource and they may be able to caution you, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. I think you can have a small committee and I don't know that you have to think of that committee right away. This is not an overnight project.
Right.
So I think maybe
I do think
have
that
you guys,
that they're better, in a better position, however, to go forth with their task if they say, we have the blessings from the select board and we have actually said that. So we need to figure out how we want to structure it and let you have it and then go with it.
And then there would be a question of if it became, because if we,
Everybody's thinking too much into this.
well, I'm thinking about financials.
I think the advantage of having veteran services here is they have resources, and that's the discussion the committee can take. What is the best way?
Okay.
And especially if you're going to be using any kind of town resources, any finances that you're going to be using, you want accounting for. So I
Right.
think I can just see Steve's head thinking, he's got all these answers, but I think we need to let them get together, say who should be on this, and then maybe come back and say, this is who we would like on the committee. Or
Right.
even, you know,
We will form a committee, but we do have to have you guys sanction it because it's gonna be using town.
Right.
And
I make a motion to sanction this committee and to get it underway, and allow Steve to set it up, come back to us and tell us what he wants to do. And then we can move forward. So.
Slight
But
modification for a second on that one.
Yeah.
From a language standpoint, Joyce,
Yeah.
maybe what we
Clean it up, Molly.
clean up, Joyce.
Yeah, since it is going
Good
to
luck.
be a committee that the select board is actually appointing,
Yes.
we could just ask Steve and Pam and whoever else they want to work with to presume that you have our support to move forward, and then at the next meeting, when you're ready, come back with a proposal to us.
Yep.
And then we can formally move to, approve the mission and appoint the committee at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
That
Joyce?
works.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second that for discussion, please.
Oh,
I just
sure.
want to be, I want to be
Motion.
clear. I want to be clear on what is expected of the town other than the select board's blessing to let you move forward with this. As Amy said, there's expenses involved, and I think everybody needs to understand exactly what you're going to be asking the town to do.
So what we would be asking the town to do is to hang them up, put the brackets on the poles, put them up in the beginning of May, and then after the first week of November, take them down and do that each year as we go through the banners.
Okay, thank you.
If you could probably add that to the proposal and then even put
Right, so
a timeline on it, what you
Yeah.
think the start and stop would be.
Yeah, and like I say, I would like to do just some pricing.
Yeah,
That-
that's definitely it.
We can work on and the committee can decide. I'd really like to have a 5-member at least committee decided because you're always gonna have somebody saying, well, why didn't my dad go up? Right? And so we need to come up with a criteria, who goes up first, if you've got more than whatever polls. I don't know how many polls, but we can count them.
Yep, well, that's why I figured if we knew how many flags, it's basically almost the same.
Well, and I can get you those numbers, but we're
The minimum
we're-
order is 30. I think we'll have that, well, with
Oh,
the
God.
hometown, we'll have that, no problem. I was shooting for 70.
so there's
Well,
motion.
you'll have more than 75 if the families want to sponsor it.
Right.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to sponsor it after that, but it won't come from the town.
No,
We will get
No,
outside
if we don't have enough
sponsorship.
family sponsors to get enough, we'll just go, Lowe's and Home Depot are huge for military. I'm sure a lot of companies and businesses in town will donate as well, so.
Okay. So the motion was by Molly, the second was by Randy.
No, I motioned.
No, she
Cleaned you up.
she cleaned you up. So motion was by you, amended motion was by Molly. And the
then
second to the amended motion was by Randy.
Sure,
Oh.
whatever.
Roll call?
Ready?
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Keegan,
Yes.
Chungalo,
Yes.
Parsons.
Yeah.
Nevin Smith,
Yes.
Iser.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Amy, if I can just, before they go, if I can just ask you if, since people are showing an interest to be on the committee, that probably should come through our office so that we can, at some point, if say you get 10 people who you want, to be able to bring it to the select board, because you will have to help, they can make recommendations, but you'll want to have that, be that decision maker.
And try to be an odd number.
I was just gonna.
That is good. So can I like put it out on the community page and see who's interested and we'll go from there?
Here.
Sounds great.
And the
Thank you.
email address is
And thank you.
sandersj@hadleyma.gov. You did, that's right. We're
Sounds
good. The new
Thank you
email
for doing
address.
Thanks. Steve.
Thank you.
Too, I'm honored.
Something.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right, so moving on to new business 6.2, special town meeting warrant. So we're gonna vote to open up the warrant.
Simply vote to open up.
Make a motion that we open the warrant for the special town meeting to be held Thursday, October 26th.
Yes.
Second,
Motion by Molly, second by Joyce. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Keegan,
Yes.
Chungalo,
yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Nevin Smith.
Yes,
And Isaac.
Yes.
Thank you.
6.3, employee appointments, fire department, police department, seniority list, and employee appointments, right?
Yes. These are. Just gonna mute Randy till the motorcycle's
He's
gone.
loud on his motorcycle.
Yes, these are the yearly appointments for the employees. I got so carried away with my boards and committees spreadsheet that I left all of us poor employees off. So I just need y'all to appoint all of us again for the next year.
So can I ask just questions? 'Cause-
Sure.
So when I look at the list, I'm on just like the town official one.
Uh-huh.
So these aren't all the town employees.
They are not, these are
So, like,
the,
why are some people left off?
I don't think you're gonna appreciate my answer, and maybe Troy can rescue me through HR. But these are the employees that y'all have traditionally appointed. And these are the ones that we continue to appoint. I don't know if every employee should be appointed or not, but this is the list that we have traditionally used for time and on.
Well, like, I mean, just looking quickly, I just mentally go through town hall, right? So Sue's on here, but Kim's not on here.
So actually, that's because MGL says that the town collector appoints the assistant collector. So
Okay,
even
so
though
there's a
Sue's
method.
appointed, Sue has the authority to appoint both Kim, and then there's actually a deputy collector who does the other things. That's, so it's, there's a lot of MGLs behind this, but since Sue and Linda are both no longer elected, that's why they're both on there, but they both have appointing authority under them, under MGL.
So are we, do we still appoint them even though they're under contract?
So Susan's contract will be up in 2024, and I believe Linda's is as well. So they're on here. They're just carried over. If you'll notice, Carolyn's contract is on there, but it's also an adjusted date. Mike's McNable's is on there. His is to the adjusted date.
Okay,
But then what about like the electrical inspectors are this year?
Oh, I just missed it.
Oh,
They're
okay, no, I just didn't know
2024.
if there was a rationale.
No, there's no rationale. Jennifer just missed it.
But
I
it's a
missed-
good question.
Then.
Let's dig that up.
okay.
Unfortunately, won't have that.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But I will look into that and then, because I think, when we enter into contracts, sometimes that you might appoint them as a contract time and their period of appointment is 3 years. So it's not necessarily that we're, blanket appointing everybody July 1st because of the contract requirements. So that's what we really need to clean up a little bit and take a look at and say, okay, does it make more sense to appoint everybody at the beginning of the fiscal year? Who's required for that year? Because some of the appointments vary in duration.
And
So do we need
Should
to
we
do this tonight or?
I have memories coming to me. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
No.
This has to do with insurance purposes, and David Nixon always had us reappoint for the fiscal years for insurance coverage to make sure that all the employees were covered on this list that were covered by insurance. Is why we had always done it traditionally in the past, was for insurance purposes.
But if we vote this tonight, I mean, as far as I know, everybody works for us that's on here, so, but if we go ahead and we vote this tonight, if you and Troy or Troy does some research and wants to change it, we're okay, right? You could come back to us and say, hey, I'd like you to update that vote. Okay, all right.
Sue wants to say something.
Oh, Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, I do have authority under Mass General Law to appoint Kim and the deputy collector, but it's always with your approval. So you folks are notified of that, and we don't normally handle it in the first couple of meetings. And honestly, everyone who is paid by the town as an employee is covered under our insurance. Unless, I mean, I can't even imagine an instance where that would become an issue. So that's all I have to say.
All right, well, they'll make.
I have a
motion.
question.
Sorry.
Well, my,
Looking
ahead.
looking at the town list, I see the COA director. I don't see the library director. But I know
She's
he's
under the
in our
trustees.
budget.
She's under the trust, he's under the trustees.
So the trustees do the appointments, but we pay them
Mhm.
because it's in our budget line for the library.
Mhm.
Okay.
And are we, so is this like an annual thing for the insurance purpose, or are we not voting on people for 2025 and 2026 for their next appointment on this list?
But my question is why are we even doing this when we hire somebody? That doesn't mean that we need to reappoint them every year. When you
It does, and
hire-
I'm gonna find the reason.
Say that again?
Yeah, it's very, it's any town I've worked in, there's an annual reappointment. So,
For
and
insurance.
you're either designated as an
different,
appointed
okay.
employee or not. So I really think let Troy do his homework and he knows exactly what you're looking for, and we'll
Okay.
find out the reasoning why and exactly who needs to be on that list.
Okay, so
Okay.
table it tonight,
Table
don't make
this.
the vote.
I would recommend to take it.
Okay,
Because
No,
of the insurance
I don't
question.
get it, why you would hire somebody and have to keep reappointing them. That seems ridiculous.
We're gonna get educated, Joyce.
I guess so, but I don't, like I say, I don't understand it. So if Troy can educate, that's great.
Good. So we have a motion in a second?
Just because we've always done it doesn't mean that we should just blindly.
Do we have a motion in a second?
did you
He said,
table, table,
we're tabling it.
No, you're not
Table,
tabled.
yeah.
Table it. Okay,
table it? Okay,
all right. Moving right along then.
okay. DPW Director Contract Performance Review. Troy is here,
Troy.
as is Scott.
Evening.
Good evening.
All right, so this is just going to be a quick overview of what you guys have already filled out individually. Can you throw that into slideshow mode?
It already is, but why isn't it should be that way?
Let's see if I
I appreciate, but yeah,
can.
why isn't it doing it? Mine's on.
We'll let Alex fix this. You're good at this stuff.
Aha, I know why. You want to duplicate that piece.
Oh, you like legit, like put all of our comments up in here for everyone to read.
I sent you the reading.
Are you trying to share?
I am sharing.
I think I know why.
We don't need to go into it. Just move them up to the single person and he can do it from like this. It's fine.
What am I doing? Single person.
Go
Hmm.
put it on the side. Get rid of all the people on the side and just, he can do it from there. It's fine. There we go.
All right, we'll move forward. So basically, we're just going to cover everything that was on the performance evaluation. I'll give just a brief overview of the background information. So where this all came about was that on September 21st of last year, 2022, the select board entered to an employment agreement contract with Director McCarthy, and then appointed him as the DPW director. That contract is actually current until October 1st of 2023. But section 4 of the of subparagraph D of the contract did state that the DPW director and select board will meet for a performance review and update at the change of the fiscal year of 2023. So that's kind of where we're at now in July of 2023, and why we conducted the performance review.
So my thought when we wrote that was that we would sit down and Scott would say to us, because we don't have a lot of information about what he does, this is what I have done in the last year.
Yeah.
These are things I have on my goal list, and I cannot reach them because there isn't money, or I have done this even without having money, or we got an extra grant. But he would inform us what he was doing rather than us saying, what have you done? Or this is how we think you've done it, when we have no information about that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, it wasn't clearly outlined in that contract. So I think moving forward is just something that we clearly define moving forward. Because after reviewing some of the other contracts, it's clearly defined. Like, for example, Chief Spanknable, his is clearly defined where you'll talk about goals and so on and so forth. So if we look at some of the language and kind of make sure that our contracts are consistent and congruent moving forward, I think we'll be able to repair some of those things.
Let's just move forward here. Moving on.
Moving on. So really, you guys all know this stuff. So really, it's just facts-based. I simply extracted exactly what you put on the evaluation. So those are the leadership or evaluated competencies: organizational, positional, human and interpersonal, professional, political, community, leadership, as well as relationships with boards, committees, and direct supervisor. The rating scale was 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. So this is how it shook out for organizational leadership. In summary, for organizational leadership, the board rated Scott at a 4.5. Positional leadership, again, overall, the overall rating was a 4.25. And then human and interpersonal, the overall rating was a 4.8. Professional leadership, the overall rating was a 4.0. Political and community leadership, the overall rating was a 4.6. And then relationships with boards, committees, and direct supervisors, the overall rating was a 4.6. And so the overall rating on a 5-point scale was a 4.52. And then there were some additional specific areas of strengths and improvement and opportunities, which you guys all evaluated. I'm not going to read them because you guys all know what you wrote. And then there were some recommended 3, 6, and 12-month goals, which I think you guys all know what you wrote, and we'll be able to set some of those guidelines as Jane talked about moving forward. So that was it for that presentation. Pending your comments or questions.
Yeah, I just want to, so first of all, Scott, from my standpoint, where I come from, meeting expectations when you're not even a full 12 months into a brand new job is actually a good thing. So I don't want you to read anything, into me giving a 3, other people where they did 4s and 5s. I think my comments will speak for themselves, in terms of my thoughts about how you're doing. Again, kind of piggybacking off of what Jane was pointing out, I also think that it would be appropriate for us to, we didn't get any feedback from, when we did Carolyn's review, there was a strong feeling about getting feedback from peers and from employees. In your job, I'm not so sure about the direct reports, but certainly the peers. Part of my comments about your interpersonal skills being so strong, or because I know for a fact, I've heard nothing but great things from your working colleagues, you know, about the public safety team and everything you guys do together. So I think it would be nice, again, as Troy, you know, gets into his new role, to help us do a better job, making sure we're getting a full and complete picture, because we are just that much removed from your day-to-day. But again, I mean, I think the numbers speak for themselves. Obviously, we're really glad that decision that we all made together back in September or whatever it was last year.
Thank you.
Now, do we have do you have any goals, or is that something that comes up later where you present your goals to us as well for the coming year?
My recommendation would be when you sit down to meet with Scott in an executive session, is that's where we'll outline goals for the following year.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I just have one request. Scott, you saw my review on you, so I don't need to reiterate what I wrote. But one thing though, could you put the town of Hadley on your truck, because nobody knows that it's our truck?
Yeah.
How is that? How is that happening?
Yes, that was the past chairman preferred it not to be on there because he had too many calls when the vehicle was out of town at meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And he said that he preferred to keep it off like an unmarked police vehicle or whatever, that it didn't need to be.
People get out of your way on the highway, so.
I most certainly do it.
Yeah, I think it needs to be marked as a town of Hadley, and very proud that you drive the truck, and you have a good truck to drive. And if you have to go to meetings, that's our business, not anybody else's. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yes, I understand.
And to Joyce's point, there are other vehicles in town that don't have the town of Hadley written on the sides, and I got questioned about that the other day. So I guess we need to look into why not every vehicle that the town owns does not have town of Hadley on its side.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. I appreciate that too.
Do you have any questions or comments for us?
I appreciate you taking the time to do the review. I really appreciate your honesty with, you know, where improvements can be made and suggestions. And, you know, I like working here. I appreciate the town and the people. I just look forward to moving forward and being better.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Super.
Can't ask for more than that, Scott.
Yeah.
Well, you've had a rough year. Like I said, you had a rough year with all that Route 9 shit going on, and I was digging it up and putting our water lines in and doing all of that, and you've done a good job with all that, and making sure we had our things in order out there also. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, not to mention picking up just random things to blow off the back of people's pickup trucks when you're going on Route 47 in front of my car. So
Oh. I do whatever needs to be done.
I loved it. I was laughing too.
And other things though is that you've had a hard time trying to, you know, keep our residents happy that have had to endure a lot of the goings on with Route 9, and you've been very communicative with them, and they've appreciated it, and so I thank you for that too.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Joyce. It's just the Route 9 project. Every time I think that things are kind of starting to smooth out, unfortunately the road gets rough again. That's just the nature of the construction, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're all waiting for the finality of it all. That's for sure.
All right. Well, thank you. Troy needs to stay because we're gonna do the code of conduct guidelines for town board commissions and committees.
Yep. So basically, you have before you, or you've seen the new code of conduct guidelines for towns, boards, commissions, and committees. The reason why this has come about is March 7th, the Supreme Judicial Court ruling in the town of Southborough case between Barron and Kalinda basically, made some impacts to this. And really this new code of conduct is really set to kind of help guide us as municipal officials to proceed forward in the current environment post decision by the SJC. So it's really out there to help us, help guide us, help guide the board, our commissions and committees here in town.
One question on the code of conduct.
Yes, ma'am.
Under section 5, it says distribution and education, and then it refers to the town clerk, the town clerk's responsibilities. Does the town clerk, has she been involved in this? Does Jess know?
I haven't communicated with her personally. I know when I reviewed it, because this was developed by Maya, wasn't developed by us.
Yeah.
And then distributed through the MMA. I know she already does those tasks.
Yeah.
So I think it's a seamless thing. But I will make sure that Jessica does receive that
just don't want to surprise
verify.
Jess.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Yeah, and she did. I noticed this time when I went to get sworn in for a couple of committees, she did a nice little hey, state ethics training, here you go, here's where you find your code of conduct.
And that's how I know that she does it, because I see people walking around with the card. So everything in that clause is certainly something that she's already been doing and will continue to do moving forward.
I did have a question on section 4, because I know that we tread very lightly on the freedom of speech and the First Amendment rights. So I'm just looking to know, so as far as actionable items for conduct, how I read it, I'm sorry, you're so tight-lipped right now.
Me too.
Okay, so all persons addressing the public body shall conduct themselves in a peaceable and orderly manner. Such persons may not make true threats of violence or incite imminent lawless conduct by others. Period. And then it goes on to